Hey folks, we are plugging in for some Martial Power Monday here. Give me a second to check my signal, run through my spiel, and then we'll sit down for an hour of building power. So let me see if I'm coming through yet. Come on, guys, show me the thing. Where am I at? Where's my deal? I am not seeing. Am I live? There I am. Live. Cool. All right, great. Let me hit. If you follow me on Twitter, I've just posted that I'm live on Twitter at Phil Kearney, like my name down below. Let's see. I'm just going to hit my Discords here real quick and run through my spiel real fast with y'all, and then we'll get to work. So, hey, my name is Phil Kearney. I build RPG supplements, PDFs. I've been focused on Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition for a while now. There are a slew of links in the description down below that lead you to the spell point variant rule bundle that you can see on screen here, as well as a number of other options that I've created. All my work is always 100% free preview. If you click on any of those links or dive into any one of those product descriptions, then you'll see an eye icon on the right hand side of the screen if you're on mobile, or if you're on desktop or tablet. There's going to be a full preview link underneath the cover of each individual book when you dive into each individual book link. And in either case, or clicking the link, it'll open up a PDF, a sample PDF of the full book product. You can read it all cover to cover. Amongst them, there's probably about 150 some odd illustrations. If you're here for the art, you can plug into those and check out the artwork that we produce for other books that we'll be producing for Martial Powers as well. If you're a D&D enthusiast, or perhaps an MTG enthusiast that is into role-playing games, check out the spell point variant rules specifically, but check out all the work, and if you find any of it useful, consider making a purchase. It'd be greatly appreciated, and a great way to help encouraging me in producing art. In that sense, hold on real quick. Let's get into my screens here. And okay, great. Speaking of supporting the channel, if you would like, subscribe, hit the bell. That'll help guarantee that I continue to get to build momentum towards hitting 1,000 subscribers and 4,000 hours of content viewed, so I can start monetizing every time I do artwork on the channel to help make sure that I can make this more than just a side hustle. So, hey Dennis, nice to see you, man. We are looking at Martial Powers today, so let us, let me see, where are we at? Dive into, okay, so we got a couple things going on here. If you've been around, this is like which stream is this now? We're like way up there in numbers. We're now looking at episode 52. So if you check out the Martial Powers playlist, you'll see the previous 51 some odd episodes that we've been basically building this book. There's a link for you to see the read-only Google Doc that lets you read along with this. Starting, hold on, I want to keep this page. We're looking at a sample build today. So we had done the Cavalier previously. Let me get down to where we're supposed. Oh yeah, today we're working on a battlefield control build. We call it the Barbarian Terror Kit. We've started naming our builds now. So I'm going to walk through some of the basics here with you guys and look at the powers that I've selected to express this character option. We'll do Barbarian this week. I need to set a clock, so I got about an hour here on my lunch shift for me to be able to play around with you guys for a little bit. So 20 minutes on the bar. There we go. And then I'll pop every 20 minutes. After an hour, I gotta be getting out of here. So we'll walk through the Barbarian and the build. If we get through it, then we'll start building a fighter alternate option using different powers. But our goal here is to look at a character that is able to use the martial powers to basically control the battlefield, or rather control the actions, decisions, and movements and attacks of enemies that you'd be facing. So this is for 5e. So I am a 5e D&D enthusiast. I created on the DMsGuild a 5-color mana spell point variant rule, and martial powers is a universal, like a key type martial maneuver system that allows you to spend mana points to create different effects that we'll look at a number of them today. But the original intention was to build a color mana theme for people that are into Magic the Gathering, like Ravnica, Theros, Strixhaven, or any of the other plane shifts options that are out there. We didn't have a color expression in Dungeons and Dragons in 5th edition, so I created one and put it on the guild. And you can, it's linked down below. You can look at it for free. But there's a lot of content like color mana tokens, a playmat, a mana tracking sheet, and stuff like that if you download the document after purchasing. But the Martial Powers allows us to create a unified mana color system or elemental system. Like if you check out the Elemental Key book, it has air, earth, fire, water key that you can use to use for different elemental powers, much like Avatar: The Last Airbender. You could be an airbender, earthbender, firebender, or if you're playing more universally, you could be the Avatar, and you could arbitrarily control how much of each element your key is devoted to, and then you could prepare which elemental disciplines you want per day. This system expands on that, having both a color mana system and a elemental system that are optional. Otherwise, it's just generic key like you would be used to out of the player's handbook in the DMG as spell point variant rule mechanics. There's 5 ranks of power that coincide with the half casting progression of Rangers and Paladins. 1, 5, 9, 13, 17, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 mana each to be able to trigger. We have a power progression here for the hybrids that are Paladins and Rangers. They scale up 2 mana per level up to 40 mana at 20th level. And then you have the martial classes, Barbarian, Fighter, Rogue, which only gain 1 mana per level. And we're going to look at a Barbarian at 13th level. So we're going to walk through the build. We're going to walk through the Path of Raging Fury here, just to get a taste of what these things do. And then we get the full build progression here. We only went to 14th level because that's the level at which the Barbarian completes its expression of the Path of the Raging Fury. So we've just got basically a basic scaffold here that we built out for a 14th level Barbarian. Single class, but we can freely mix multi-classing as we describe in the document further up above. But our final stat line at 14th level, using the standard array as a start with, 15, 14, 13, 12, 10, 8, and then take variant human, so that this would bump to 16, 15, 14, 13. Anyway, it's mathed out. Sorry, I'm trying to break down the reverse of it in my head, and I can't offhand. But it's the standard rate is 15, 14, 13, 12, 10, 8. Are your stat lines arranged any way that you want. And then a variant human gets a +1 to all of it. So it's 16, 15, 14, 13, 11, 9. And then throughout the course of the build for the 14th levels, at 4th level, we have +2 to the strength, which has already been added above. At 8th level, we use our... Well, that's not kosher. Feat at 8th level is a +2 to the Constitution. And then at 12th level, we break up our feat between Constitution and Wisdom, which is all expressed above, which bleeds into there. So looking at the Barbarian at 1st level, we took Great Weapon Master because we're going to be focusing on using a polearm. And so let's see. And then we get a Rage. We get 5 rages. At 14th level, we get 5 rages per day. It increases our Strength, Constitution, our damage bonuses by +3. We get Unarmed Defense with a Dexterity and a Constitution of 2, and then 4. Base armor class is 16. We want to get hit, so we're keeping our armor class low. There are alternate builds, of course, we could use to ramp up armor class so we can't be damaged. But again, we are leaning into we can be hit to instigate more effects that we have in our class build. Reckless Attack, Danger Sense, these are I'm just running through stuff that's in the Barbarian in general. If you're familiar with 5th edition Barbarians, you can look this stuff up in the Player's Handbook or D&D Beyond or anywhere else to look at this stuff. But at 3rd level is when we get our archetype. So just stepping past the archetype real quick at 3, 6, 10, and 14. We walked through the feats that we get. Otherwise, everything is pretty much set. As you know, a barbarian gets stuff at levels. So let's look at the, and then we'll look at the channeling and the powers that we gain from the Barbarian Path of Raging Fury. So here we can gain Fury at first level as a Barbarian. If the way that we have this work is that currently 5th edition is scaffolding so that you gain archetypes or subclasses at 3rd level. The way that we build this out is that if your character is committing to going with martial powers right out the gate, you can gain access at 1st level to get 1 point, 2 point, 3 point. We're seeing in one D&D testing that Rangers and Paladins are gaining spellcasting at 1st level. So we're using that same mentality that if you're going to commit to the Path of Raging Fury as a Barbarian, then you could take a feat at 1st level that allows you to have Power Initiate that gives you 1 point of mana, and then at 1st level, then 2 points of mana at 2nd level. And then at 3rd level, you commit to Path of the Raging Fury. You could refund that feat and switch it out for another one, and which we took Great Weapon Master to get off of the Variant Human. So, but if you're, so we got the channeling feature. If you are more standard and you want to wait until 3rd level to gain this stuff, that's fine. That's up to your DM, but we have the variant rules here for curving in from the get-go at 1st level to get into that. So if channeling, instead of spellcasting, we're using a channeling feature. The channeling feature, you can use your starting at 1st level, or if you want to wait till 3rd, if that's how your DM plays it. You gain the channeling class feature. Strength, Constitution, or Charisma is your channeling ability score, which you can choose when you select this path. We will go with Strength. So your channeling DC equals 8 plus your proficiency modifier plus your ability modifier, which is Strength. So we see in the table down here, we have 18 Strength, which is a +4 to the die roll. At 14th level, we've got a +5 modifier from our bonus, our proficiency bonus. So that means our channeling stat channeling stat is a +9, and then the DC is a 8 plus blah 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 blah. So our channeling DC is 17. And now we'll look at the Fury. At 1st level, you gain 1 point of Fury, and you gain another point of Fury at a level. So at 14th level, we have 14 Fury total. You also gain powers. Starting at 1st level, you gain, let's look at our table again up here to see our power progression. You start with 2 powers at 1st level, and then you gain another power each level until you hit 10th level, at which point it downshifts to 1 power every other level, which caps us in the end at 20th level with 16 powers total. All of these classes can utilize the same power curve. Monks, the Paladins and Rangers can mix in spells that they know instead of powers, but can still use the power system as their default. And then instead of learning powers, they can select spells from their list to learn instead. But the Barbarian, Fighter, Rogue, Monk, and in particular instances, Warlock and Artificer can dip into these lists as well. The Barbarian uses the same progression system. So at 14th level, which is where we're stopping the progression, they have a total of 13 powers that they can learn. Those powers can be any mix of up to 5 different disciplines of power, which include exploits, which are things that like modify die rolls, modify your movement, modify your attack rolls. They modify things that exist already in the game. They exploit metagame mechanics to gain better leverage or power for your character. There's maneuvers, which are probably the closest thing to like actual spells that you could cast. You can channel a maneuver as either an action or as a bonus action. Exploits don't require actions at all. If you roll a die, like if you've got, like say you've got Field Medic as one of your exploits, when you make an ability check that uses the medicine or the survival kit, skill or a healer's kit, you can roll 1 power die per mana channeled, adding the highest roll to your result. And so if we're looking at your power dice, at 1st level you roll a d6 on everything, like smites and stuff like that use a d6. At 9th level, you upgrade to a D8, and then finally at 17th level, you upgrade to a D10. So at 13th level, where we're at right now, we're rolling a D8, and your max power, your max rank of power is 4th rank, same as you would have for, say, a paladin at 13th level would have access to 4th level spells. You gain your up to 4th rank of power. Each rank that you can spend up to 4 mana. Your max channel limit is also 4. So when you trigger a power, you could, like, say, spend 2, 3, or up to 4 mana. Like, if it's a 1st rank power, you can spend 1. If it's a 2nd rank power, you spend at least 2. If it's a 3rd rank power, at least 3, 4. There you go. So you could channel up to 4 mana, but you could, if it's, like, say, the field medic that we were looking at is only a 1st rank power. So you only have to spend 1 mana to trigger Field Medic if you want. At this level, we're throwing D8s as our power dice. So the way that this thing is set up is if we burn a single point of mana, we get a D8. We can add the result of that D8 to one of these ability checks. If you spent 4 mana, you could throw 4 dice, but you only keep the best result. So you're spending extra mana to help make sure that you're getting a higher result, but it's not guaranteed. So you have to kind of calculate that, like, how important is this to me to be able to roll a really high roll? I'm willing to throw a lot of mana at it to get it. Otherwise, it's just a casual, you just spend 1 mana to get the boost, and often that might be enough, depending on what it is you're trying to curve in to achieve, and circumstances of the challenge, etc. Let's see. Let's look at, continue the progression here. Furious Power is the actual, we have Channeling Rage. The way that, let's see, so we have the martial powers, we walk through that. So you gain a couple powers at 1st level, and we eventually, at this point, at 14th level, have 13 powers. Then you have the Channeling Rage feature, which is when you choose the path of Martial Fury. Rage gain... Path of Raging, we updated that name. I need to edit real quick. Path of Raging Fury. You gain additional benefits. While raging, you cannot maintain concentration. That's just a thing about rage that stands. You can't maintain concentration. So if you channel a sustained power while raging, it automatically locks. And we'll talk about locking in a second. You can choose to tap or lock sustained powers as normal while you're not raging. Because when you're not raging, you can maintain concentration. And then at 14th level, which is where we're building at, you can choose to channel a sustained power as part of the bonus action used to rage. As a reaction. I don't know why that's there. Oh, we were originally talking about, that doesn't exist. So you can channel powers. You can channel sustained powers. You can channel maneuvers as an action or a bonus action. You can channel sustained powers as an action or a bonus action. But in this instance, if you channel it as a bonus action, Rage takes a bonus action to activate. That kills your bonus action. By 14th level, where we're at, you can gain extra action economy so that when you trigger Rage, you can also automatically trigger a sustained power that you know. But because you're raging and you can't maintain concentration, that requires the sustained power to lock. So what happens is normally you would maintain concentration on something. And if you get damaged or whatever, then you have to check your concentration and you can lose it. But this locking mechanic means that I do not need to maintain concentration. I can't lose concentration until I choose to dismiss the ability, or I take a long rest, or I'm incapacitated or dead. So, but what happens is if I lock a power, it reduces my maximum channeling limit by the number of mana I lock. So if I have 4 ranks of power, which is where we're at 14th level, and I sustain a power that's going to require 2 mana, and I lock it, I cut off 2 mana. So if I had, say, a maneuver or a strike power that was, say, 3rd or 4th rank that would require 3 or 4 mana for me to use, because I locked 2 points of mana, I could only channel up to 2. So I would either need a way to make those powers cheaper, so I have a max channel limit of 2, and I could only channel 2 mana to use a 3rd or 4th rank power, or I'm limited to only 1st and 2nd rank powers. That is a sacrifice I have to make because I no longer have to sustain and maintain concentration for these effects. They basically become permanent abilities that are fused onto my character until I choose to dismiss them. They could be dispelled if you're going to get targeted that way. That's always a risk, but you don't have to worry about losing it in damage. So you can build the buffs that you want on your character. For instance, I could just take 4 buffs, like 4 mana worth of sustained powers, like 4 first level or a first level and a third level or 2 second level or 1, they're actually ranks, not levels. So, or a fourth or a single 4th rank power, and that would eat all 4 of my mana. I could lock that and I wouldn't be able to use any other power because I can no longer access my mana because I've cut off all my channels, if that makes sense. So if it doesn't, you can check back like around episode 5. I do a really deep dive into those mechanics. I think it's around episode 5 in the playlist that we have. So at 14th level, your character can, at 14th level, you can choose to channel a sustained power as part of your bonus action, which we just discussed. So at 3rd level, you have Furious Power. So at 3rd rank, while raging, you add your rage bonus to the DC of any powers that require a saving throw. So looking back down here, you can see that while raging, our DC is 20. So that's a DC 20 saving throw that creatures would have to make. Pretty straightforward. And then at 6th level, we gain Empowered Wounds. We made an alteration here because we found a bag of rats issue. Previously, what Empowered Wounds used to be able to do was whenever you got hit by a critical hit or you failed a saving throw that would deal damage to you, you gain a point of fury back. You only have 14 fury. Obviously, if you're going to throw 3 or 4 mana at a time or fury points per power, you're going to burn out super fast. But what we had the ability to do was anytime you got critted or anytime you failed a saving throw, you can get a point back, rewarding you for setting yourself up for damage. But Bag of Rats is a theory that basically says any ability that lets you take a bag of rats and kill one of the rats inside of it, and it thus gives you a resource back, that's a bad design feature. And I hadn't realized that I had accidentally allowed a bag of rats into my build, so we had to change the feature. So we did. So Empowered Wounds, as of this weekend, Empowered Wounds has been revised. So as a reaction to taking damage on a critical hit while raging, and that remains in effect, you have to be raging, which is limited, and you have to take a critical hit. You can recover a number of spent fury equal to the max rank of power gained as a barbarian. One of the things about this system is that when you multi-class, you continue gaining ranks of power, you continue gaining known powers, and you continue accumulating mana. You can mix and match all your multi-classes together so that you're continuing, just like a sorcerer and a wizard. If they multi-class, they'd eventually be able to get the 9th level spell slots anyway. But depending on which class they're progressing is going to limit the level of spell that they can learn or prepare. So this has that same sort of mechanic base baked in, but most of the class features that go into these builds are also limited to how far you took that class. Instead of just being a blanket, you can always just gain power with this. Kind of like if they were to rebuild Paladin so that the aura of protection that gives you the charisma bonus, if they instead made that so that it, instead of giving you your flat charisma bonus, it would instead give you a bonus to saving throws equal to the maximum spell level that you could cast as a paladin. If you dipped paladin to level 7 and then backed out of the class and went into sorcerer, at 7th level you only have a +3 bonus to your at 7th level you only have 2nd level spells. So if you were to bail on Paladin at 7th level because you got your Aura of Protection and now you want to go scoot up spell slots to be able to do more smites, if you use this system, 20-minute marker, keep it going. If you use this system and you bailed out that way, then your Aura of Protection would only grant a +2 bonus because your spell level max as a Paladin is 2. So that means you only get a +2 bonus. That is an easy way that Wizards of the Coast could fix the Aura of Protection problem that Paladins have. Because once you get access to it, it just gives you a +5 bonus to your Charisma right off as soon as you get your Charisma up to 20. And that's what you do. It's basically just a concentration buffer. But you could use these. This is like a good way to be able to allow multi-classing to logically scale on how committed you are to any particular class that you're multi-classing into, if that makes sense. Simple design philosophies that so far Wizard hasn't seemed to have picked up on, and hopefully somebody out there is watching this, that they can take this as an insight and maybe add it to their playtesting in the future. But I don't expect them to. They never respond to my applications to work with them. So I'll keep my humble pie and eat my crows as they come along. But so yeah, great. So the critical hits issue, that's not a bag of rats because there's only a 5% chance that you're going to crit when you attack. So if I wanted to get power back, and so I had somebody sneak attacking me or just taking shots at me, like if I had my friend just stab me over and over again with a dagger, chances are I'm going to take, even if it's just a minimum 1 point of damage that's being dealt, I'm still going to take 20 damage before I'm going to get, at this level, it'd be 4 mana. I'd get 4 mana back. But it's going to cost at least 3 mana for me to be able to get, like if a healer came along and wanted to heal me of those hit points, it would take at least 3 or 4 mana for me to guarantee I'd get those 20 hit points back. So it could be considered bag of ratting, but I have to be raging while you do it, and I only have a minute. So they have to be able to crit me within a minute for me to be able to get that fury back at all. That's a super iffy, that's not good action economy. You are going to end up wasting more hit points and more healing resources getting the Barbarian back to base square with whatever that extra mana is than he would have been able to do to otherwise just use the alternate feature, which is, in addition, when you spend hit dice to heal damage during a short rest, you can also regain a number of spent fury equal to the number of dice spent. So at 14th level, I have 14 hit dice, and one of the added class features that we included is the optional class feature, Primal Stamina. That should be capitalized. Primal Stamina allows us to, when you finish a long rest, you regain a number of hit dice equal to your level. And that is at 6th level when you get Empowered Wounds. So this allows you to always get your level worth of hit dice back. And you have to commit to 6 levels of Barbarian to get to it in the first place, so it's hardly a dip feature. And it doesn't have a lot of use for most classes. This is the only use that we're really making of hit dice inside of the entire document. And specifically to the Barbarian, so you can consistently, you have 14 Fury points at 14th level. This allows you to spend all of your hit dice to regain 14 hit dice, to regain 14 Fury if you need it. So that means at 14th level, you've got effectively 28 Fury if you're willing to spend it all, which also happens to be the amount of mana that a Ranger and a Paladin gets. So you have to manipulate some of your resources to be able to be on the same footing as the hybrid spellcasting classes have. And you'll see that's a common theme baked in the Fighter, the Rogue, and the Barbarian, to have this refund or this recuperation mechanic that allows them as martial characters to stay inside the martial structure that 5e establishes for them, but to be able to manipulate their other resources to be able to put those resources where they want them back into power. Continuing on in the look at, we're just walking through the features because you have access to all of them in this build. Brutal Fury comes in as your 10th level class feature, which is whenever you score a critical hit, normally a Barbarian would be able to roll additional damage dice when they crit to have larger damage. But what this does is allows you to ignore that extra damage die and instead gain free temporary points of mana that you would be able to spend to trigger a strike power, which we'll look at. You'd be rolling a D8 instead of whatever your normal damage die is for that, whatever it is. The Brutal Strike allows you to, by 13th level, you have 2 additional dice that you would be able to roll on your critical hit. But at 13th level, you can instead exchange that for 2 free points of mana that you would then be able to use on any of the strike powers that we have learned down below. And there are a crap load of them. Strike powers do fun stuff like Shocking Strike, when your weapon can deal lightning damage and you add 1 power die per mana burned. The creature can't take reactions until the end of its next turn. So if I get 2 free points of mana to trigger this effect, and I've locked 2 mana out of my 4 to permanently sustain an effect, I have enough mana open so that whenever I trigger a critical hit, I get a free strike, so I don't have to spend any of my own mana at all. I just get to use it for free. So I could spend 2 mana to roll an additional 2d8 damage on, say, my polearm that we're going to use. I would then be able to use, anytime I do that, I could put 2 mana into a Shocking Strike. So it would be an extra 2d8 damage, and whoever I hit isn't going to be able to use a reaction. These things work like smites in that I burn them after I confirm the hit. I make an attack, I hit with the attack, I then spend 2 mana. I can then do 2d8 damage at this level and say, remove your reactions. But you can stack your strikes. So I could spend 1 point on Shocking Strike, and I could say, spend a point on, what's a fun one? Freezing Strike. You're going to see this. You're going to see Shocking Strike, and actually you're going to see Freezing Strike and another one later. Freezing Strike is you deal cold damage, and you add 1 point of power die per mana spent, and the creature's movement is halved until the end of the next turn. Another fun, so we'll look at how this stuff, but I could use Freezing Strike and Shocking Strike together. I could then choose weapon damage, lightning damage, or cold damage as my options for what type of damage I'm going to deal. Plus, the target can't take a reaction, and the target has half movement until the beginning of until the end of their next turn. So when it's their turn to make attacks again, they can only move at half the movement. They don't have any reactions. These are shutdown powers. Freezing Strike prevents creatures from being able to move around the battlefield. Shocking Strike is a great power just to, say, throw a dagger at a wizard and hit him with it, and then apply Shocking Strike on that hit. It's going to prevent him from being able to use counter magic because his reactions has been shut down for the turn. But it costs you mana to do it. So you're expending your resources to control the resources and action economy and movements of enemies. So it kind of balances out. That's the theme that goes on behind these things. And then just to finish out the last ability, which is Destructive Purge. At 14th level, you can dismiss powers that are locked or that you're sustaining as a free action during your turn. So you can dismiss any number of locked powers while raging. You deal 1 power die of force damage per rank of power dismissed to creatures within 10 feet. They get a dex save for half damage, and you add your rage bonus and your ranks. So you have your DC plus your channeling stat, which is strength. So that's a 12. Plus your rage bonus, which is 15. Plus the ranks dismissed it's supposed to be DC equals 18 plus, I don't know why it's not listed here. Proficiency. Bonus plus your channeling stat, plus your rage bonus, that takes us to the 20 that we had down below already, plus the ranks dismissed. So like if I have 2 ranks of power that are locked and I dismiss it as a free action during my turn, that deals 2d8 damage to all creatures within 10 feet of me. They can make a saving throw for half damage. It's force damage. Any creature that fails a saving throw is knocked prone. There you go. So I can, as my own action, I can dismiss the action, and then I still have my actions and my bonus actions. I can trigger effects again, and then when you dismiss any number of locked powers. So I could theoretically lock 4 ranks of power as just any power that I want. If I have a 4th rank power, I could lock a 4th rank sustained power. I could then immediately dismiss it. I could lock it as a bonus action. I could dismiss it as a free action. I could lock the same power again as a standard action and then dismiss it again, allowing me to do 48 damage and then 48 damage again, and that eats up my turn and I'm done. But that would cost me 8 mana to do something like that. But it's a free action to dismiss things. So I can use a standard action to trigger something, and then I can use a free action to dismiss it. I could use a bonus action to trigger something. I could then use a free action to dismiss it, and that's the end of my round. So fun stuff. It allows you to do burst damage, and you're eating up your action economy and your own mana source to be able to manipulate how you're using it. If that's to your benefit to do that right now, go for it. So that walks through the basics of what these things are. So we're going to now walk through what powers we've actually selected. Right? We walked through the feats that we gained. At first level, we took Great Weapon Master because it's a great feat. And while it exists, let's keep using it. And the rest of the stuff is just stat gains and standard Barbarian stuff. So we don't really need to look at that stuff again. Let's see. I probably should list in here. I don't need to list that. It's its own thing. So let's see. Okay, powers. We have a total of 13 powers, right? I've broken them down by category. One of the things that you can gain instead of learning a power, and you can switch out all of your powers whenever you gain a level. So anytime you take a class that gives you more, that increases your channeling limit, which is any level of a martial class, you can swap out just like a prepared caster can swap out their entire kit every day when they prepare new spells. We can switch out our entire kit, but you know them, so you're going to stick with this for your class, for your level. And you can swap them all out when you gain a new level. So it doesn't really matter what my progression was to get to this state, because it could have been completely different at 13th level, and now at 14th level, this is what I'm going with. And this is pretty much focused on controlling the battlefield. And there's a shitload of options in this book for different ways to control the battlefield and control enemies. This is just the set that I went with because it seemed like fun. So we'll come back next week and we'll use a fighter build. And we'll look at how the fighter would approach this differently, because the fighter has different benefits, so it would lean into things differently. But I broke this up into one of the things that you can gain is you could learn damage types. So whenever you're making attacks, you could automatically deal, starting at first level, like acid, cold, fire, whatever. Instead of dealing weapon damage, you'd be able to deal one of these energy types, so one of these elemental damages, and then starting at 5th level you could use one of these more exotic features. But like you could learn that as one of your powers. One of the other, and then we have like commentary on color magic and elemental magic, and what kind of energy types are associated with each of those, which we discussed in a previous session. But one of the other things that you can do is you can spend powers to learn feats. Like at first level, when you only have 1 mana, what the hell use is that to you? Well, instead of using your mana, you could learn a first rank sustained power and then just lock that 1 point of mana so that you just, when you wake up, you just kick on that aura and then you lock it into your soul, and now you just have that aura all day until it gets dispelled. Or instead, you could just learn a feat. At first level, you gain 2 powers, right? But you only get 1 mana. So instead, you can learn 2 feats. So here's all the feats that you can learn. Is all the combat feats that you would hope that you would want to learn, right? Great Weapon Master is in here. But you can see from the build that we went with, right off the cuff, we went with Polearm Master and Sentinel. So at first level, we have Great Weapon Master, Polearm Master, and Sentinel. Those are 3 fantastic battlefield control feats. They are go-to for heavy weapon specialists like this Barbarian build that we're going with. So easy peasy, super simple. Just lock that shit down. First level, there you go. So once we get past first level, we start looking at our build. Second level, we'll just continue gaining bump until 10th level. Then at 11th, 12th, 13th. By 14th level, we'll gain 2 more. So just kicking in through the game, we can look at what powers we learn and what do those things mean. So we'll just go through that process. So we have these things built out. We only have powers of 1st, 2nd, and 3rd level. Even though we can channel up to 4th rank powers, we haven't chosen any of them for this particular build example. I could learn them next level if I wanted to, if I think that they're useful, but this is the build that we're going with for now. They're cheap. These things are all super, super cheap. Super easy to use. We can spam the hell out of them when we get a crit. All the strikes that we know are going to be within curve, except for a stunning strike, which is basically what you expect it to be from a monk, right? It's basically hold person is what it is. And it costs 3 fury, so if we get a critical hit, we could get the 2 free mana, and then if I don't have a sustained power locked, this would cost 3 fury. So if I lock 2 mana, I wouldn't be able to use it. But if my mana is open, I got a critical hit, I would only have to spend 1 mana because I get 2 points for free. But it's there for when I need it. just like Stunning Strike's there for a monk when they need it. So this is the only one that's breaking out of that mold. Although you can see here that Anchor is a reaction, that's 3rd rank, and Wave of Terror is a maneuver, that's 3rd rank. But you can see here that I have 2 Fury to spend because I took a feat, which is Efficient Power, Wave of Terror. So looking at the feat, Efficient Power requires 5th level and the Channeling class feature, and you can gain it multiple times. So what this feat allows you to do, which of course you can use powers instead of feats to learn it, is you choose a power that I've learned that's 2nd rank or higher, and I can then reduce the rank and amount of mana to channel that power by 1. So even though these are listed as even though I learned these as 3rd rank powers, if I also learn Efficient Power with it, I can drop it down from 3 down to only 2. So like I can use, like, for example, if I have Close Quarter Combat locked, I then as a 14th level character, I would have access to 4 mana. This locks it, drops it down to 2. I could then still use the Anchor reaction because I only have two ranks open, and I could also use Wave of Terror because I still have 2 ranks that are open. I would not be able to use Stunning Strike. So if I wanted to dismiss Close Quarter Combat, and that would open up my channels, so I could then channel the Stunning Strike, as well as, like, say, Thundering Strike. So we'll walk through and look at what each of these individual powers is to see how these things tie together for the Barbarian Terror Kit. So there you go. So let's take a look at these individually. Maneuver, Restraining Hold. So we're going to go down here to, let's go up to, these are maneuvers. So let's look at what this maneuver does. Maneuver. And it is, there we go, Restraining Hold. So drop down to 2nd rank. And is that what it is? Oh, it's only a 1st rank. There it is, Restraining Hold from Elite only. While grappling, you can deal 1 power die of weapon damage per mana burned to the grappled creature. And it's only 1st rank, so I only have to spend 1 mana, but I could spend 2 if I wanted. So it'd be D8 damage. So while we're grappling, I deal D8 damage of weapon damage per mana burned, D8 if I'm only spending 1, and force it to make a Strength or Dexterity saving throw. And this, again, would be against a DC 20. If the save fails, the creature is restrained until the grapple ends. The creature can make an additional save at the end. This is basically Restraining Shot, the ranger's Restraining Shot spell. You shoot them with an arrow, they make a saving throw. If they fail the saving throw, they're restrained. Restrained is better than grappling because it limits what actions they can do in their movement. So it only costs 1 mana to do that. It's pretty cheap. Let's see, and we'll look at grappling again more in a minute. So we used also maneuver. We used Efficient Power to drop the cost of Wave of Terror. So Wave of Terror is a 3rd rank maneuver. Let's go take a look at what that does. Wave of Terror. You can choose any number of creatures within 30 feet of you to make a Wisdom saving throw. And again, your DC here is 30 if you're raging. Saving throw is DC 20 if you're raging. So dumb creatures, like dumb brutes that you would want to scare away from attacking your backline, super useful because chances are giant brutes are going to have crap wisdom saving throws. There is the risk that they could be immune to charm effects, which generally disables frightening. So this is a conditional only use, so use sparingly if necessary. But assuming that we're in a campaign where you're not fighting shitloads of Fae all the time, you probably want to build differently. But assuming that Frightened is on the table, you can charm stuff or whatever, then Wave of Terror is useful. So, all creatures within 30 feet of you make a Wisdom saving throw. If it fails, it's frightened of you, using the frightening conditions, which means it can't come closer to you. There you go, and it's at disadvantage to attack you. The effect ends for a creature if it... Keep that going. The effect ends for a creature when it succeeds a saving throw at the end of each of its turns, or if it loses line of sight with you. So basically, like normal frightened rules, it has to run away. If it gets away from you, it loses the fear and it can come back. This is going to disable a slew of creatures. Only costs 2 mana because we bought down the cost. I can use that as an action or a bonus action. I can use it twice in a round if I wanted to. Don't necessarily need to. The DC is pretty damn high for a wisdom check against brutes. We're assuming that we're keeping brutes off our back line when we're using this particular maneuver. And I would want to use it as a probably as a bonus action. Let's take a look at... Actually, let's get into our sustained power because we only have one on this build, and that'll help inform the build. So let's go down to sustained. This is unscripted, so sorry if things are clumsy. I haven't gotten into scripting these things yet, but once this book publishes, maybe I will. Let's go to second rank is close quarter combat. So dropping down to close quarter combat. 2 mana. While this power is sustained, all melee attacks you make gain the grappling strike power, as detailed above, adding 1 power die to your grappling checks. In addition, you can grapple as though you are 1 size larger. So medium-sized human creature is now considered size large, which means that we can grapple huge-sized creatures while we sustain this, and we're going to gain 1 additional power die, which is a D8. Currently using the normal grappling rules that exist, where it's an ability check, this is going to add up to as a D8 to my grappling check, which is going to be my strength, which is a 4, my proficiency bonus, which is a 5. That's a +9 on top of the D20, on top of my rage check, which is a +3 because of raging, so that'd be a +12 to my die roll, and now I get to add a D8. So it's going to be anywhere from a +13 to a +20 to my die roll, which is a D20. So that's a lot. It's a lot. But it's a locked ability, so it's always in effect. And we gain the grappling strike power. So let's go back up to look at grappling strike, which is a first rank power. Grappling strike, melee only. Your weapon deal damage increases by 1 power die per mana burned, and you can grapple a creature up to two sizes larger than you. So as a medium-sized creature, the sustained power, the close quarter combat makes me size large, and then this grappling strike bumps me again. So I can grapple stuff that are up to gargantuan size. Large, huge, gargantuan. I can grapple gargantuan-sized creatures. So your weapon damage increases by 1 power die, which means I'm going to deal extra damage when I hit them automatically every time I make an attack if I choose to. If I choose to use grappling strike. And you can grapple a creature up to 2 sizes larger than you with the weapon that I hit with. So I can then adding the highest power die result to my grappling ability check, which we looked at down below already. If I spend 2 mana on this instead, I roll 2d8. I can add those 2d8 damage to my attack, my damage roll, and I'd roll whatever those 2d8 dice are. I take the better result, and then I would add that to my grappling check. So the grapple ends when you choose to or attack another creature with the grappling weapon. So I'm using a polearm. I'm using close quarter combat. I'm using grappling strike. I have a reach of 10 feet. When I hit and I have Sentinel, and I have Polearm Master, and I have Greater Weapon Master. So I can stack all that stuff together. I can take a -5 to my die roll, get my Great Weapon Master plus 10 damage. And on top of that, I've got Sentinel. So my Polearm gives me reach. I hit with Sentinel. You're walking through my space 10 feet away. I hit you. I grapple you. I am now using my polearm at a 10-foot reach to grapple you, which stops your movement. And then, on top of that, we already looked at the exploit for... the maneuver restraining hold. So I could hit you with an attack using... Great Weapon Master either as part of my attack routine or as a reaction, and I hit you. As a reaction, I hit you. I get to use Grappling Strike. So when I hit you, when you're trying to move through my space, not only are you stopped because of Sentinel, but you are now potentially grappled on top of it, which means that you are unable to, not only can you not move, you have to break the grapple before you can start moving again. So that shuts down a target strong. And then on top of that, I can use Restraining Hold. So I use my attack routine, I hit, I can then use my bonus action to restrain that creature. So not only is it going to be stopped, it's going to take extra damage. It is now going to have to make saving throws against my DC 23 to be able to get, DC 20 to get to break the restrain. But when the restrain breaks, you're still grappled. So then you still have to use an action to get out of the grapple. So it's a real tie down. And if I lock that, then I have close quarter combat for as long as I stay awake or don't lose consciousness. Unless I get hit with a dispel magic, then I get to make my saving throw to prevent that from taking effect. So that's the sustained power that we're going to be maintaining for us to have that Polearm Master Sentinel lockdown ability. All we got to do is position ourselves somewhere in front of our casters, like say 10 feet, 15 feet in front of our casters. They're going to have to move around you to be able to try to close distance with them to be able to melee. They're going to get shut down by your Sentinel. Moving on, Wave of Terror. We looked at Wave of Terror already, which is everything within 30 feet of you. If they can get past you, I could, like, say, if I wasn't successful in grappling them somehow, instead of using that bonus action for the restraining hold, I could instead use my bonus action for Wave of Terror. So I stop them. Now I'm going to hit them with a frightened effect. That is going to make them, when it's their action again, not move any closer until they're able to make a successful save. So that is, again, going to shut them down. And any other mooks that are within 30 feet that may have been attempting to front on my backline. So let's look at Anchor, more shutdown. So we drop the cost of Anchor from a 3rd rank down to only 2 Fury. So while we have close quarter locked, we can still use it. It's a reaction. So if we wanted to, instead of using the Sentinel feat as an attack of opportunity, we can instead use Anchor. It's expensive. It costs 2 mana to do it, but let's get into that maneuver. Let me find it here real quick. 2nd rank maneuver. 3rd rank. Sorry, 3rd rank. 3rd rank reaction. Thank you. Anchor. As a reaction to a creature attempting to move, teleport, or shift planes, it takes 1 power die of damage per mana burn. And since we bought it down, it's 2 mana, right? It would normally be 3, but we bought it down to maintain so we could lock our close quarter combat. So it's to be 2 mana. So that's going to be 2d8 damage that something takes for attempting to move, teleport, or plane shift. But here we're talking about movement. So instead of using Sentinel attack of opportunity attack, we could anchor it in place instead. So we burn 2 mana, it takes 2d8 damage, and if it has to succeed a charisma saving throw. Again, we're using this against beefy tanks, giant meat shields that want to come in and grapple stomp your back line. So we hit it with Anchor. It has to succeed a charisma saving throw DC 20 at this level to be able to progress any further. Or it can't move until the beginning of its next turn. It only lasts that 1 turn, but it can't move. It's not going anywhere. So that allows you to reposition, your team to reposition if necessary, to deal with the threat on the board that you just anchored. It's also a reaction, so if something tries to, like a Warlock, for instance, like Fate Touch Warlock, that tries to use, deceiving jaunt, or whatever that ability is. It's 6th level, or is it 10th level? Defense feature to create an illusion of itself and then disappear. If you use Anchor on it, you know it's trying to teleport. You get the sense that it's trying to teleport or plane shift. So you can slap Anchor on it, and it has to make that saving throw. Otherwise, it doesn't go anywhere. So, there you go. It's a great way to shut down a power. But that is that's a hard stop. And then we brought down the cost on that. So that takes us through the maneuvers, the feats. Let's look at the strikes that you can use during an opportunity attack or during your normal attacks. Or since you have Polearm Master as a bonus action, you can use the butt end to do D4 damage. But that also, anytime you hit with an attack, you can trigger a strike. So here's the strikes that we have. Freezing Strike. We looked at Freezing Strike earlier. What Freezing Strike allows us to do is you can deal cold damage, assuming that, say, you only deal... if you have close quarter locked, you could at most do 2 dice of damage with 2 mana, or if you're unlocked, you could do a total of 4. Like if you're sustaining as a wizard, if you're sustaining haste, you can cast Fireball while you're sustaining haste. Sustained powers work the same way. If you don't lock it, it doesn't limit your power. So if I'm just sustaining and making the bet that I'm going to be able to maintain concentration if I get hit or get targeted with a saving throw of some sort, then I can leave those channels unlocked and I'd be able to use up to 4 mana while also sustaining that Goading Strike. But if I'm raging, I have to lock it. So that automatically shuts me down to 2, which is why everything that we've built is assuming that you only have 2 ranks of power open. So that we're always assuming that we're raging, because eventually we're always going to be raging at 18th, 19th level, something like that. Is like you're perpetually raging anyway. So you're always going to be raging. So you only want to have 2 or 3 mana worth of powers locked at that level, so that you can always make use of your raging class features, which are bumping up your armor class, which is bumping up your damage and stuff that you're doing to enemies. So it's your advantage to always keep those channels locked. So Freezing Strike, 2d8 damage. The creature's movement is halved, right? So we were talking about that earlier. So and then until the end of the next turn. And then on top of that, we have Thundering Strike, which is also a first rank power. Thundering Strike, which is your weapon deals thunder damage and adds 1 point of power die per mana burned. The creature is pushed up to 10 feet away in a direction of your choice for each point of mana burned. And if we're using 2 mana, that's going to be 20 feet. So we could do thunder damage, we could do freezing damage, or we could just do our normal weapon damage if we choose. This is going to allow you to push creature 20 feet away, and its movement is halved. So if it's a typical creature that only has 30 feet worth of movement, you just pushed it 20, and its movement is halved. It can't even get back to you from where it began when you hit it, either as a reaction or as your normal attacks. And of course, you get 2 attacks as a normal action. So you could potentially be doing this to 3 creatures per turn, and if you crit, it doesn't cost anything to do it at all. If you do spend the 2 points on doing that, obviously you're whittling down your mana pool. But anytime you spend, like if you have a friend that like say has, a Withering Bloom from the Witherbloom school, Wither and Bloom. You can use that as a reaction to allow your friend to use a. Oh no, that's right, because it's not a short rest. So never mind, that doesn't work. But you can burn down your mana, and you can get it all back when you take a short rest by spending hit dice. Or if in this battle you got critted, then you could use your reaction to then get 4 points back. So it allows you to recycle a little bit more quickly. And you can use Thundering Strike with Freezing Strike. Again, you can stack these effects up. Goading Strike is another great one. So second rank, it costs 2 to use it. You increase your power die, so you'd be doing 2d8 damage at 14th level when you hit with an attack. And then the creature that you strike has disadvantage on any attack made that doesn't target you. This effect ends if the target hits you. It can also attempt to end the effect at the end of each of its turns by succeeding an intelligence saving throw. So intelligence is like the worst stat for giant meatbags are going to want to run up and attack your backline. So this is making it so that they're penalized for attempting to attack anyone other than you by being at disadvantage on their attacks. And again, that stays active until they can succeed a saving throw. So this could last for multiple rounds, and you don't have to maintain concentration for it. This is just a condition that sits on that target. So, hey, Arnetico, good to see you, my man. I've been walking through this system, and I'm almost done with our scaffold that we just dropped into the playtest link that we have. Again, it's read-only, but you can take a look at how this, how the Barbarian Terror build works. So we are now on Intimidating Strike. So yeah, Goading Strike, which forces them to attack you. You've now got Intimidating Strike. Is this more MTG? It can use color mana if you want to, but out of the box, the system doesn't assume that you're using MTG at all. It's just generic like key or like spell points. It's just universal. If you want to use a color magic paradigm, you can. If you want to use the elemental magic paradigm, you can. But that's strictly up to your own session 0. If you're going to use a power paradigm, you're welcome to do so. If you're not using a power paradigm, then it's just generic mana, just like key is generic or spell slots are generic. It's up to you. If you want to use a power paradigm, you get free stuff as a result of doing it. And it curves into the flavor. Like if you're doing a Strixhaven campaign, you could use this for you could have a barbarian that wants to be a part of say Prismari, for instance. Then your barbarian would use blue and red mana, and you could say have maneuvers your maneuvers use blue, and your reactions use blue, but your strikes and your sustained powers use red. So you can mix it up like that. We have rules for that in the document. So yeah, Phil's using mana in the generic term for the point system. That's right. Not trying to specifically tie things together. Right, but it's just a generic term that I use for mana because I'm not using the DMG spell points. 2 points for first level, 3 points for third level, blah, blah, blah. It ends up costing you 13 mana. Here's my complaint about the DMG. It costs you 13 mana to cast a 9th level spell. It costs you 2 mana to cast a first level spell. Does it make sense that a 9th level spell is only 6.5 times more powerful than a first level spell? That's a great question. I think it's dumb. So I think a first level spell maybe a 9th level spell isn't 9 times more powerful than a first level spell, but it sure as fuck isn't 6 times more powerful. So I think, I don't know what the hell Wizards was doing, but I think they'd make everyone's life easier if they just switched to this universal mana system where it's 1 point per level. All the math we have curved out. If you want to look at the universal spell point and high magic system that we have in the color mana bundle that we have linked down below, it does math. Let's look at how the paladin curves out as a half caster at different tiers of power in comparison to the DMG versus spell slots. It also breaks down the math full casters and third casters. So the math is there. It lines up. Mana is a superior system, whether you're using a power paradigm or not. Generic mana on a scale of 1 to 9 for spells or powers level 1 to 9, it's a much more sensible system. The math is there, and you can fight me over it if you want. Be welcome to find me on Discord or on Twitter to debate that point if you want. But our starting point in that conversation is a 9th level spell 6.5 times more powerful than the first level spell, or is it potentially more than 6.5 times more powerful? That's kind of the basis of my argument on all that stuff. But I'm willing to toss it around. But the mana curves out great, and when you're using color mana or elemental mana, that you're mixing what colors you're using, a point-to-point ratio keeps all that stuff super clean. Dennis is saying, hey, I never used mana or spell points to cast. I just say use Roll of the Dead or Thunderwave, no spell points, could be DM. Plus, it's less bookkeeping than this many ones left levels. Yeah. Well, spell points are super clumsy. But everyone uses their own brew. So, cheers. If you find some stuff in here useful for what you do in the future, it'll be 100% free preview free to look at once it's published. So, enjoy. And again, you got the playtest document that you can link down below, as a read-only document at least. So I can't actually let people have this stuff because it's going to be published on the DMsGuild, but people can look at it, and I'll be able to pull it off of. I'll disable the Google Doc once it's done. So it's limited time only, and once we actually give it to an editor, they'll make it actually use the natural language that's in 5e. So the language that we're using here isn't what's going to be in the final document. So no matter what, it stays street legal. I just gotta request. I gotta respect the P's and Q's that One Bookshelf DMsGuild requests that we use. That we not share this stuff elsewhere as a document that people can take. So, but not everybody does have a problem. But having the option is nice. I never have a problem with bookkeeping. Yeah. Fair enough. Let's see. So where were we at? Oh yeah, we're looking at Intimidating Strike. So Intimidating Strike, your damage increases by 1 power die per mana burned. So if we have 2 ranks locked, then you have 2 mana open. So that means you can do 2d8 damage in addition to your normal weapon damage. I'm almost out of time. We're almost done with the build. The creature, let's see. and the creature is frightened of you until it loses line of sight of you or you are incapacitated. The creature can attempt to end this effect at the end of each of its turns by succeeding a wisdom saving throw. So same thing, but the Wave of Terror that we had as a maneuver, let's look at that. Wave of Terror. Choose any number of creatures. They get to make a saving throw or become afraid of you. With the Intimidating Strike, they automatically become afraid of you until they succeed a wisdom saving throw or they lose line of sight. This is going to cost you 2 mana per use, per target, as part of an attack action. Is a hell of a lot more expensive than Wave of Terror is. So Wave of Terror allows a saving throw because you're doing an AoE and you're affecting multiple targets for a low mana cost. But if we use the Intimidating Strike, it's automatically going to make them afraid, which means they can't get any closer to you. They're going to run away. Stunning Strike. We know what Stunning Strike is, but let's look at how Stunning Strike looks. This one is a bit more generous. It's more like Hold Person. So you damage it increases by, well, since we don't have it reduced, it would be 3d8 damage that it would deal, and it gets to make a Constitution saving throw or it's stunned. And the creature can attempt to end this effect at the end of each of its turns by succeeding a Constitution saving throw. So it's more like Hold Person, a channeled Hold Person. You hit them, and then you basically hit them with Hold Person. If they succeed the save, mea culpa, they don't get stunned. But if they fail the save, then they're going to be able to, they're staying stunned until the end of each of their turn. So the way that the system works is that everything's at the end of the turn. So if you're spending, because these things are expensive, you spend the mana, you're going to do the thing. Generally, if it doesn't require an attack roll, it's going to require a saving throw. If it's a low cost or a big effect, then it is going to potentially require a saving throw during the attack. But a lot of them don't. And that walks us through the full build. There's some other things that you could take instead, or as we gain more levels, these are fun things that you would be able to add on to your build. Looking again at the total build, we're at 14th level right now. If we gain, when we get to 16th level, we would gain another power, and then at 18th level we gain a power, or we could decide to swap out powers. Like for instance, I think the Barbarian gets another feat at 16th level. So if we wanted to, we could swap out Sentinel and then free up that feat. So at 16th level, we'd have one more power and we'd free up a feat. So we'd have 2 powers. So at 16th level, we could keep our kit exactly as it is, but we could also pick up Cursed Brand and Lethargy. Cursed Brand is, we converted all of the Blood Hunter powers, all the edicts or whatever those things are, all the Blood Hunter stuff that are in that class. We converted them to mana stuff. So like you could play a Ranger Blood Hunter, and instead of, like, some people have a problem with like cutters, like that's, the Blood Hunter flavor is off at some tables, so we just made it a mana option instead. So like a Ranger or a Paladin could take nothing but Blood Hunter powers using the system, so you could lean into that crap. The Cursed Brand, let's look what the Cursed Brand is, and there will probably be Cursed Brand and Lethargy. They're both maneuvers. They're both 2nd level maneuvers. So let's go with, these are reactions, powers, maneuvers. Let's look at, there we are, Cursed Brand and Lethargy. So you, Cursed Brand costs you 2. Power, which is a maneuver, so you can use that as a standard action or as a bonus action. You curse a creature you can see to make saving throws against your powers with disadvantage. The effect ends when the creature succeeds a saving throw against them. So I could use a bonus action to trigger Cursed Brand. And then if I hit you, let's see, it says to make saving throws at disadvantage against your power. So I could hit them with a Cursed Brand, and then I could hit them with an attack that does, say, Intimidating Strike or Thundering, Intimidating Strike or Goading Strike. Now, until they succeed in a saving throw against Intimidating Strike, they are at disadvantage with that saving throw. So I hit them with the branding strike. I hit them with the Cursed Brand. They're now at disadvantage against any powers that I use. I can now use a shitload of powers against them, and they're now at a disadvantage on that stuff. And these are like all wisdom and intelligence saving throws or charisma saving throws. And if you're using that against a meat shield, that meat shield is going to have a hell of a time getting over it. But all those meat shields are there to do is to eat. If you're thinking like a DM, you're not thinking I'm going to kill you. You're thinking I want to create a significant threat that's not necessarily killing you, is eating all your resources. Killing somebody eats resources, hit points, and mana to resurrect them, to get them back up and running again. But anything a DM can do to make you eat your resources is a good encounter. The only purpose these encounters are there to eat up your action economy, to eat up your resources. So by the time you get to the end of your day, you're like, I really want to take a long rest. That is a successful day of DMing. So fun things like this to give you reasons for you to throw your mana at a target that you want to shut down. So let's look at Lethargy. I see a comment. Now I'll look at that in a second. So Lethargy, target creature you can see within 30 feet makes a charisma saving throw. If they fail, they can't move or use bonus actions until they succeed at the end of each of his turns. Obviously, the language here is super simple. So they have to make a charisma saving throw at the end of each of their turns. At the end of each of their turns to be able to drop Lethargy. So I could hit them with Cursed Brand and Lethargy, and that locks them down from being able to move or take bonus actions at all until they. But it just cost me 4 mana to do that, and out the gate my Barbarian only has 4. So that's a significant. That's a big eat, but it's such a lockdown. So it's super. That's why I have those as alternates or as must grabs at layer levels. What are we talking about down here? So. Just remembered breakthrough. I think oh, hey, great! Glad to hear it, man. I'm ironing out the mechanics. I'm looking forward to seeing you posting it. And then you always wanted to remake your first D&D character, a paladin, using blood hunter mechanics and more martial stuff. This might be This would be a fantastic method to do that, because instead of taking paladin spells, you can just kit up with different blood hunter features. Powers, and then you can just take a strike power to use as your smite ability, whichever power it is that you want to express the most. But that's my day. That's where we're at. This build is eventually it's here at the end of the document, because these builds that we've been making here on stream, we're going to build them out as sample characters and put them in an appendix at the end of the book. Probably appendix 2. Sample characters, and this will be the Barbarian Terror Kit. So it'll build out a kit here. It'll be a half page, here I'll show you what we did with the DMsGuild here real quick, just to show you an example. Tap, untap, burn, and let's look at this, and this is going someplace. I'll show you. We open up, again, this is a 75-page document, and you can see it is 100% free preview. So if we go through, go through here, and let's look at sample characters, Appendix A. Bam, hyperlinked. So you can see here, we built a Drow using color mana. It's a 4th level, a Drow Hermit, 4th level Druid. So we have a half-page illustration, and then we have a half build for how this character builds out, and then we have tactics for them. We're going to do that for this. So what we're doing right now with these streams, we're building different types of power kits for characters that will eventually be able to drop into the back of the book. You got a paladin. I'll be able to take this Punisher, this 5th level paladin, and rebuild him using power, the martial power system. We can take this same guy, and he's a aura. This guy is using white and red mana, white, blue, and black mana. So he's what is that? Esper? Yeah. So this is an Esper Knight. So, and he's a paladin of what? Vengeance? Yeah, that sounds sinister enough. Let's go Esper with him. We'll be able to rebuild this using power. We've got a battle priest here. Clerics don't gain access to martial powers, so fuck you. Bards, they don't get access to martial powers, so fuck that guy. Huntsman or ranger, 13th level ranger. Rangers gain access to martial. I need to redo that guy's face. He looks a little derpy. But hey, fun stuff. We'll be able to rebuild this into the martial power system using the Beastmaster kit that we built a couple weeks ago. Wizards don't gain access to powers, but we'll be able to do the same progression, like a gnome spell thief. We could use this same build and instead use maneuvers, exploits, and reactions to build out the Arcane Trickster at 19th level instead of what we have built here. So we can just modify it. But these are the kind of things that we build. You know, we have tactics for all these guys. There you go. So we build those things out. We would plan on doing the same thing here with the martial powers, and however many we build. So right now, where we're at in the document is I am slowly picking away at DMsGuild advice, or like DMs that want to use this stuff. How do you compensate for the power, and what's the philosophies that you should have going into the game as a DM that wants to make use of this stuff? What are some tips and tricks you can use to make it more fun, make it more dangerous, make it more fair? As well as we are continuing to refine and look at different things that we have built into the system to make sure that the balancing properly. I'm playtesting these things with my 17th level home team on a weekly basis, and I encourage anyone that wants to look at the sample document down below to build out a character into their system as samples. When we get done with the Spelljammer Combat and Exploration book that we're currently doing page layouts and illustrations for, and the Eberron adventure that we're doing cartography and we'll be doing page layouts for in the future, once we get those things, like once Spelljammer's off our plate and we're focusing specifically on the Eberron, we'll be back this evening in about 5 hours to work on Eberron cartography tonight. But once we get Spelljammer off our plate and so that we're focusing specifically on Eberron, I will probably be opening up playtesting for people to play with this. I mean, I've been playtesting daily. I know Lauren is one of my supporters on my Patreon, link down below. He's had people playing with it. I know that Tyla has been building with this as well, and so I want to provide an opportunity for folks to just basically do like random adventure one shots, just like dungeon crawling, to see how you would want to manipulate power. So you could build a ranger, a paladin, an artificer, a warlock, any of the martial builds. You can kit those all out once this thing is up and running. After the Spelljammer Combat and Exploration book is off our plate, it's going to free up a lot of time budget for us to dive into Eberron. But that also means that we're going to be able to open up some evenings, like Mondays and Thursday evenings, for us to be able to playtest stuff. And then we can come back on Saturday and talk about what we were able to playtest through using this martial power system. Because once the Eberron adventure is done, this becomes our primary project. Get it off the editor, start doing the page layouts for this on stream, and doing all the illustrations for this stuff. And once that's published, we'll be able to bundle it in with the martial power stuff that are the color mana stuff that we have down below to give you guys some steep discounts to be able to pick this stuff up. So that's my shits for the day, guys. When we come back next week, we're going to do an alternate battlefield control build using the fighter, because the fighter has very different abilities from the barbarian that lets them lean into different options in a very different way of controlling the battlefield. So we're going to build into that, and then I think what we'll end up doing is probably unless I get a specific request, 2 weeks from now we're going to build a rogue, a dungeon delving rogue that's going to lean into reactions, sustained, and exploits, to just be a really good Indiana Jones, to dive into dungeons, like to be a lore hold. Maybe we'll build a lore hold using white and red mana from Strixhaven. Then we can show you how like any rogue can use martial powers using the color mana system to get into Strixhaven, to get a scholarship, a Strixhaven scholarship that gives you access to the background of the Strixhaven background. So, but that's it for today. I would certainly encourage anyone that stuck around this long to like and subscribe, because we do a ton of this stuff. I am on stream doing artwork Monday through Friday. I'm on Saturday morning doing layouts and development stuff for various books. I'm on Mondays and Thursday nights doing cartography and artwork. So we put in about 16 hours of stream in a week, and we're just trying to build ourselves up to 1,000 plus subscribers. And so anyone that's catching this, if you want to help push these ideas and look at more stuff in the future, then that would certainly help. So I'm out of here for the day. I will see you guys in 5 hours for the Eberron cartography stream. I hope you guys have a fantastic afternoon. Looking forward to seeing you guys again. So cheers, guys. Later.